It's time to get the lowdown on Dwayne Ballin. We'd like to welcome Dwayne Ballin, a broadcaster, and now an author of book Journey with Julian, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Sure.
But first, we'd like to start out, how did you get into broadcasting and sportscasting? Is that what you always wanted to do?
I started actually in high school. I thought the people on the radio were really cool. So I told my dad I really liked that. And he knew a man in the Myrtle Beach area that owned a radio station. He took me over to meet him. I was a kid. And the man looked at me and said, okay, you can come hang around. I'm not going to offer you a job. You're just a kid. Before I knew it, fast forward, I eventually, during my first summer in college, I got a job with them in the summer, working actually on air.
Fun.
And it was amazing. That's how I got started.
What were you doing on air?
The news director, basically stuff he didn't want to do, like there was a ribbon cutting for something, go out there and get a comment from someone about this. And so eventually they let me actually put together a news story, which was the most glorious day of my life. I just sat there and listened as I said, this is Dwayne Ballin reporting. This is Dwayne Ballin reporting. This same radio station, they decided they were going to start sports. And I happened to be standing around.
I'll do it.
I'll do it.
And you played some sports,
yeah, and
right?
I played sports. I played baseball. I said, I love it. And I love sports. So that's how I got into sports. My first television job was in Huntsville, Alabama. And I was there not even a year. And then I ended up in the Raleigh-Durham area shortly after that. My first significant job at WTVD locally here. And I was there for 9 years and left there and went to the Golf Channel. And then since then have been at different networks.
Through all of this, was there a public figure or a sportscaster that you kind of looked up to?
Well, there were people you looked. I thought Peter Jennings was it.
Yeah.
I thought Peter Jennings in World News Tonight was that guy. He's cool.
What was the worst interview you ever did?
Mike Krzyzewski's first great team was in 1986. I had just gotten here. So they're playing in the middle of the season, and I'm doing a live report right after the game. They had just beaten Oklahoma in a really good game, and I'm standing there about to interview David Henderson, who was one of their star players. And just before we went on the air, Oklahoma player walks right in front of us. I'm looking dead at his jersey, and he keeps walking by. Then the moment he disappears, okay, Dwayne, you're on. And I start talking and interview David, and at the end of the interview on live television, I said, Duke just beat someone. And you can see David Henderson standing next to me going, Oklahoma, Oklahoma. I drew a complete blank. I said, and then my wife years later said, that's the first time I noticed you.
And you still got married.
I did.
Yeah.
Still
But
went
she
out
reminds
with
me
you.
from time to time, you know, when I noticed you, you didn't have it together.
So what inspired you to, one, write the book, and two, to kind of take a couple years off to do that?
Well, I took the time off because Julian has autism, but at some point it became evident that he really needed me home. He needed his dad home. And at the time, I was gone.
Right.
I was at the Golf Channel for 2 years. I was there during the week. I just flew home on the weekends. That was it. And it turns out he really needed me with him all the time. I mean, we went through a lot of challenges with him. And eventually people started asking me about writing a book. I started a blog. So that's how the book came about. I took the nucleus of the blog and then more stories and just put together the book.
We both read the book, and it's really heartfelt. I mean, I cried the whole way through it. How did you react to the initial diagnosis?
Well, we knew that there was something going on because he wasn't meeting a number of developmental markers that his peers were meeting. He wasn't speaking much, and he would repeat words back to you. He tantrumed a lot. He did this pacing to self-stimulate himself and flapping his hands. So we knew something was going on. We didn't know what it was. And when we got the diagnosis of autism, the only thing we knew at the time, only thing I knew about autism was Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man.
Right.
I mean, that was it.
Right.
And so, you know, it was hard at first. My wife was quick to rally and figure out what do we need to do to support him. It was a little harder for me, frankly, to accept it, but eventually I did come around. And when I did, his world just opened up, and I've just been walking this journey with him.
So as a parent, when you realize you're maybe not getting the resources you need to help a child with autism, where do you go and how do you advocate for that?
It's like being a parent of any child. You've got to really be out front for your child and a
Right.
fierce advocate for your child. Figure out, first of all, what your child needs, because all children with autism are different. They all have different needs. Find out what you can do to enhance their life, because it's going to be an ongoing thing.
Right. I love the way that you've been so involved with him and finding ways for, you're a champion for Julian, but he's actually become a champion for himself.
It's all him.
Yeah. What would you say is the one thing that Julian could teach us all about life?
It's actually very simple. If you put one foot in front of the other, and you're smiling and you're being good to other people, you're okay.
We should all live by that, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Journey with Julian. Where can
You
people
can
pick
get
up
it
the book
online
and
at
show the book?
Amazon.com, published by Simon & Schuster. We hope people will pick it up and they will get something out of it for their journey.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much for being on.
Yeah.
And that's the Lowdown on Dwayne Ballin.